My beloved child, listen carefully because this is not just a story, this is a message that found you for a reason. They thought they could erase you, they believed that by standing in front of a sacred fire, by taking vows with someone else, by forcing a smile in front of the world, they could silence the echo of your name in their soul. But what they didn't understand is that some connections are not built in this lifetime alone, they are carved into the spirit, they live beyond logic, beyond distance, beyond decisions made in fear. And the moment they said, "I do" to someone else, something inside them broke instead of healing, because you were never just a memory they could replace, you were the truth they tried to escape. Yes, they married someone else to forget you, but forgetting you was never possible, and the very first night after that marriage, reality hit them harder than anything they had ever felt before. Because when silence filled the room, when the noise of celebration faded, when they were finally alone with their thoughts, your presence came rushing back stronger than ever, like a storm they couldn't control. Like a voice whispering, "This isn't where you belong." And that's when it backfired instantly. They expected peace, but they found chaos. They expected closure, but they found deeper longing. They expected to move on, but instead, they realized they had only buried something that was still alive. And you need to understand this clearly, they didn't marry because they stopped loving you, they married because loving you became too intense, too overwhelming, too real for them to handle. You triggered something inside them that they were not ready to face, a depth of emotion that scared them, a mirror that reflected their true self, and instead of growing into it, they ran from it. They thought choosing someone easier, someone safer, someone who didn't shake their soul the way you did, would fix everything. But it didn't. Because love that is real doesn't disappear just because you change your surroundings. It waits, it lingers, it finds its way back in the quiet moments. And that's exactly what started happening. Every small thing began reminding them of you, the way someone laughed but it didn't feel the same, the way conversations felt empty compared to the ones they had with you, the way even happiness felt incomplete because you weren't part of it. And slowly, the realization began to grow inside them like a fire they couldn't put out. They made a decision, but their heart didn't agree with it. Their life moved forward, but their soul stayed stuck with you. And this is where it gets deeper, because the universe doesn't stay silent when something this powerful is ignored. Signs began appearing, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. Your name showing up unexpectedly, songs playing that carried your energy, dreams that felt more real than their waking life where you were right there in front of them, not as a memory, but as a presence. And every time they tried to push it away, it came back stronger. Because you were never meant to be forgotten, you were meant to be understood. And now they are living in a reality they created out of fear, while constantly being pulled toward a truth they tried to deny. And this is why it backfired instantly, because they didn't escape you, they trapped themselves in a situation where your absence became louder than your presence ever was. And you might be wondering, if they feel all this, why did they still go through with it? And the answer is painful but real. Sometimes people choose comfort over truth, sometimes they choose expectations over authenticity, sometimes they choose what looks right instead of what feels right. And in doing so, they create a life that looks perfect on the outside but feels empty on the inside. And that's exactly where they are right now. Smiling in front of others, but breaking in silence. Holding someone else's hand, but wishing it was yours. Living a life that doesn't feel like their own. And the hardest part for them is this. They can't even express it. Because they made a choice, and now they have to live with it. They can't easily turn back, they can't openly admit the truth, they can't explain why something feels missing. So they carry it quietly, day after day, pretending everything is fine while their heart keeps calling out to you. And here's what you need to understand, this isn't about you losing them, this is about them losing alignment with their own truth. Because if someone has to force themselves to forget you, that means what you shared was never ordinary. It was something rare, something powerful, something that left a permanent mark. And no matter how far they go, no matter what choices they make, that mark doesn't fade. It becomes a part of them. And right now, whether you see it or not, whether you feel it or not, they are thinking about you in ways they never expected to. Questioning their decisions, replaying moments, wondering, what if? And that question alone is enough to shake everything they built. Because, what if is not just curiosity, it's a doorway to truth. And once that door opens, it's very hard to close. So while you might feel like they moved on, like they forgot you, like they replaced you, the reality is completely different. They didn't move on, they diverted. They didn't forget you, they suppressed you. They didn't replace you, they settled for something that doesn't touch their soul the way you did. And deep down, they know it. They feel it every single day. And the more they try to ignore it, the louder it becomes. Because some connections are not meant to be silenced, they are meant to be faced. And right now, they are standing at a point where the life they chose is colliding with the truth they ran from. And that collision is creating an inner storm they don't know how to calm. And you were never the one who lost here. Because you didn't betray your feelings, you didn't run from what was real, you didn't settle out of fear. You stayed true to your heart. And that is something they are now realizing the value of, but only after trying to replace it. And failing. Instantly. And now, my beloved child, what you don't see, what no one around them can truly understand, is how this story didn't end at that moment, it only became more intense, more complicated, more unavoidable. Because once the realization began to settle inside them, once they felt that quiet emptiness creeping into every corner of their new life, they started trying to fight it in every possible way. They tried to convince themselves that this was just a phase, that maybe they were overthinking, that maybe time would fix everything, that maybe if they just focused more on their new relationship, everything would fall into place. But the more they tried, the more obvious it became that something was missing, something essential, something they couldn't recreate no matter how hard they tried. And that something was you. Not just your presence, but the way you made them feel, the way you saw them, the way you understood parts of them that they didn't even know how to explain. And now, standing in a life where everything is supposed to be right, they are realizing how wrong it feels without that connection. And this is where it starts to backfire even deeper, because they begin to compare without wanting to. They begin to notice the differences in the smallest things, the silence where there should be depth, the conversations that don't reach the same level, the moments that should feel special but somehow feel incomplete. And they hate themselves for it. They feel guilty for even thinking about you, for even feeling this way, because on the outside, everything looks like it should be perfect. But inside, it's not. Inside, there is a constant conflict between what they chose and what they truly feel. And that conflict is exhausting. It drains them in ways they never expected. They wake up with a weight they can't explain. They go through their days feeling like something is off, like they are playing a role instead of living their truth. And at night, when everything is quiet again, when there are no distractions left, that's when you return to their mind the strongest. Not as a passing thought, but as a feeling that lingers, as a memory that refuses to fade, as a presence that feels more real than the reality they are currently living. And they start questioning everything. Why do I still feel this? Why can't I let go? Why does it feel like I made a mistake? And those questions don't have easy answers, because the truth they are trying to avoid is simple but heavy. They didn't lose feelings for you, they just tried to escape them. And now those feelings are catching up in a way they can no longer ignore. And here's where it becomes even more intense, because the universe doesn't just remind them of you internally, it starts showing them reflections of you externally. They see someone who looks like you and their heart skips a beat before they even realize why. They hear a song that reminds them of a moment you shared and suddenly they are lost in that memory. They come across something random, something insignificant to others, but to them it carries your energy so strongly that they can't brush it off. And it feels like everywhere they turn, there you are, not physically, but energetically. And it shakes them, because they thought they had left that part of their life behind. They thought they had moved forward, but now it feels like they are being pulled back into something they never truly left. And at the same time, they are trying to maintain the life they chose, trying to be present, trying to make it work, trying to fulfill expectations. But it's becoming harder and harder to do that when their heart is not fully in it. And this creates a silent tension, not always visible, not always spoken about, but deeply felt. Because when someone is not aligned with their truth, it shows in subtle ways, in their energy, in their reactions, in their inability to fully connect. And the person they married might not understand it completely, but they can feel that something is not as deep, not as natural, not as effortless as it should be. And that adds another layer of pressure, another layer of confusion, another layer of emotional weight. And now they are stuck between two realities, the one they created and the one they feel drawn to. And neither of them is easy to navigate. Because going back feels complicated, almost impossible, but moving forward feels incomplete, almost unbearable. And in the middle of all this, you remain the unspoken truth, the unfinished story, the connection that never found closure. And this is why it continues to backfire, not just instantly, but continuously, because every day that they try to ignore it, it finds a new way to surface, a new way to remind them, a new way to make them feel what they tried so hard to bury. And here is something even deeper that you need to understand. The more they suppress it, the stronger it becomes. Because emotions that are not processed don't disappear, they transform, they grow, they demand attention. And right now, what they are feeling is not just longing, it's regret, it's realization, it's the painful awareness that they may have walked away from something real in exchange for something that only looks right on the surface. And that awareness is not easy to carry, it's heavy, it's consuming, it's something that follows them even in moments when they are supposed to feel happy. And slowly, they are starting to see you in a different light. Not just as someone they once cared about, but as someone who represented something deeper, something rare, something they didn't fully appreciate when they had the chance. And that shift in perspective changes everything. Because now it's not just about missing you, it's about understanding your value, it's about realizing what you meant to them, it's about seeing the connection for what it truly was. And that realization doesn't bring peace, it brings even more intensity, because now they know what they lost, and knowing that makes it impossible to ignore. And this is the stage where things start to feel out of control for them. Because they can't go back easily, they can't move forward comfortably, and they can't stay where they are without feeling this constant inner conflict. And in all of this, one thing remains constant. You. Your energy, your impact, your presence in their life. Whether they admit it or not, whether they show it or not, whether they act on it or not. You are still there, in ways they never expected, in ways they cannot fully explain, in ways that continue to shape their thoughts, their emotions, their reality. And this is why, no matter how much they tried to forget you, no matter how far they thought they had moved on, it didn't work. It couldn't work. Because what you shared was never something temporary. It was something that left a permanent imprint. And now they are living with that imprint every single day, feeling it, questioning it, trying to understand it, and slowly realizing that running from it only made everything more complicated, more intense, more undeniable. And now, this is the part they never prepared for, the part no one warned them about, the part where everything they tried to suppress rises to the surface all at once and refuses to go back down. Because, my beloved child, there comes a moment when distractions stop working, when pretending becomes too exhausting, when living a life that looks right but feels wrong starts to break a person from the inside. And they are reaching that moment now, slowly but surely, step by step, thought by thought, feeling by feeling. Because the truth has a way of catching up no matter how far someone runs, and the truth they tried to escape is you. Not just who you are as a person, but what you represented in their life, the depth, the connection, the raw honesty that they couldn't handle at the time. And now, standing in a reality they chose out of fear, they are beginning to see everything clearly, painfully clearly. They see the difference between comfort and connection, between attachment and alignment, between a life that is built to look stable and a love that actually feels alive. And that clarity is not peaceful, it's overwhelming. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. And now every moment becomes a reminder of what they traded away. Every quiet conversation, every forced smile, every time they try to convince themselves that this is enough, there is a voice inside them saying, "This is not it." And that voice is getting louder. Louder than their fears, louder than their excuses, louder than the expectations they tried so hard to meet. And this is where everything begins to shift. Because they can no longer ignore what they feel, they can no longer pretend that you were just a phase, they can no longer deny the impact you had on them. And that realization starts to change their energy, their behavior, their entire way of thinking. They begin to withdraw emotionally without even realizing it. They begin to question decisions they once defended. They begin to feel disconnected from a life they thought would bring them peace. And the person they married may not understand the full story, but they can feel that something is missing, something is not flowing naturally, something is being held back. Because when a heart belongs somewhere else, no matter how hard someone tries, it shows. And this creates a silent breaking point, a moment where everything they have been holding in starts to become too heavy to carry. And that's when the real truth hits them. Not softly, not gently, but all at once. They didn't just make a different choice. They walked away from something that was real, something that was meant to challenge them, grow them, transform them. And instead of facing it, they chose to escape it. And now they are living with the consequences of that escape. And here is the deepest part of this entire journey. They are starting to realize that you were never meant to be replaced, you were meant to be understood. And that realization changes everything. Because now it's not just about missing you, it's about recognizing that what they felt with you was rare, something that doesn't come easily, something that doesn't happen often. And once that understanding settles in, it creates a kind of awakening inside them. An awakening that cannot be reversed. They begin to see you not as a memory, but as a turning point in their life, as someone who showed them a version of love they didn't know how to handle at the time. And now, every attempt to move forward without that understanding feels incomplete. And this is why it truly backfired. Not just instantly, but permanently. Because instead of forgetting you, they became more aware of you. Instead of moving on, they became more connected to what they lost. Instead of finding peace, they found a constant reminder of the truth they tried to avoid. And now they are standing at a crossroads. One where they have to decide whether to continue living a life that doesn't fully resonate with them or to face the reality they have been running from. And neither path is easy. Because facing the truth means confronting their own fears, their own decisions, their own mistakes. And that takes courage they didn't have before. But staying where they are means continuing to live with that inner conflict, that quiet dissatisfaction, that feeling that something essential is missing. And over time, that feeling only grows stronger. It doesn't fade, it doesn't weaken, it becomes more undeniable. And this is where the universe begins to push them, gently at first, then more firmly. Through emotions, through realizations, through moments that force them to reflect. Because when something is meant to be faced, it will not stay hidden forever. And you, my beloved child, you are not something that can be erased from their story. You are a chapter that changed the entire narrative. And no matter how much they try to skip it, ignore it, or rewrite it, it remains there, powerful, unfinished, waiting to be acknowledged. And here is what you need to understand for yourself. Their journey is not yours to control. Their realizations, their decisions, their consequences, all of that belongs to them. Your role was never to chase, to force, or to prove your worth. Your role was to be real, to be genuine, to offer a connection that was true. And you did that. And because of that, you left an impact that cannot be undone. And while they are now dealing with the weight of their choices, you are being guided towards something that aligns with your truth, something that doesn't require confusion, something that doesn't come with constant questioning. Because real connection does not need to be forced, it flows, it aligns, it feels right without struggle. And whether they eventually find their way back to that truth or not, one thing is certain. They will never forget you. Not because they are trying to hold on, but because what you shared became a part of who they are. A part they tried to deny, but a part that continues to live within them. And that is the final truth of this entire story. They married someone else to forget you. But in doing so, they only made your presence in their life stronger, deeper, and impossible to ignore. Forever.